the second of the 4 elements of stress management, on the next page, relieving stress. And that's something that you're all familiar with already, you all know how to do already. We'll just look at ways of adapting the practices that you know already to make them accessible to people in different situations. People who are going to be in chairs, for example. So while helping people understand stress would come from some explanation, what you might call lecturing or speaking to them, or perhaps through some group discussion where they have a chance to share with each other and think and reflect about their own experience. Relieving stress will happen more by doing some practice, some form of practice. And while in yoga we understand that the experience of a stressful situation manifests into the physical level but begins in the mind, at the same time, we don't approach it by beginning at the source, the mind. We start with the manifestation in the physical level. It's very difficult to simply go in and stop the mind, right? Calm the mind. When someone's upset, classically, what do you say to them? What did you say?
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. Yeah. You don't say, "Oh, just calm down." Right? Because take a deep breath is something that you can do, right? And that has its influence on the mind. That's the beauty of these practices. The practices that you already know how to teach, that will work at adapting to some degree, have a number of wonderful benefits. Of course, the first benefit of which is that they can help relieve the feeling, the experience of stress. They can bring the physical system back into balance. They can reverse, right, the trend towards fight or flight or freeze. They can reverse it into relaxation. Right? There's an opposite response to the stress response called the relaxation response. That term coined by Dr. Herbert Benson. Meaning, you can, in the same way that you can incite your system into the physiological experience of stress, you can consciously create relaxation through slow, deep breathing, for example, through a meditative practice, through simple, easeful movements done in harmony with the breath. That sends a message through the nervous system to the whole body to calm down. So you're all familiar with that. So one benefit is relieving the physical symptoms of stress. And we know from a yogic point of view that as you do that, you also influence the mind, right? Whatever you do to help the body be more relaxed will also have its influence on the mental level as well. Helping someone feel what it's like to become relaxed can also be helpful to them because it helps them become more aware of when they're not relaxed. Right? Do you remember the first time you took a deep relaxation and you saw what it felt like to be really relaxed? And then by contrast, it becomes more obvious when you're not relaxed. Dr. McClanahan, maybe not everybody knows her. She's a doctor that lives here at Yogaville that's been serving as a naturopathic doctor here for many, many years. And she once told us about a study that was done where the main thing that was taught to this group of people was deep relaxation. And they found that even after the study was over, even after people stopped practicing, they still were more, they still responded more mindfully to stressful situations because they had acquired a skill, an awareness of what it was like to be stressed. And by the fact that they become more aware of what it's like to feel relaxed. another benefit of the practices that we use to relieve stress is they can help us cope with stress. In other words, if you're working long hours at a desk under a certain amount of pressure, you can use the same techniques that you use to relieve stress to break up the stress that you're going through in a current moment. All right? There's sort of two different things. You come to a class to relieve stress, you're learning a skill that you can then use during your daily life. Not that you can suddenly lay down your yoga mat at the office and begin doing sun salutation. But even as you sit there at the desk, you can roll your shoulders, you can turn your eyes away to look in the distance instead of looking at the computer screen for hours at a time, which is unhealthy for the eyes. Right? You can do some deep breathing. So you're teaching them skills they can use and integrate. And ultimately, you're teaching them skills that can really transform the way they experience themselves and life in general. You know, if someone, this is what excites us as yoga teachers, and I think, if someone has the experience of finding a kind of personal center of peace, of balance, that becomes a very powerful thing because they found that inside themselves. Right? It's not something they're accepting on faith. It's something they can experience and recreate for themselves. So an interesting approach when we teach people to relieve stress is also to do some simple kind of movements to show them things they can do anytime in their daily life. How to do some quick, simple movements to stop and relieve stress. There's literally in a minute or two, you can do some simple stretches and breathing practices that would reverse a trend towards becoming stressed out. So that's the second of these four elements, just the concept of relieving stress.